If not, okay. I think we are ready for law and licensing. Correct? Yeah. Yeah.
If it's okay, Vice Chair Carey chaired the Law and Licensing Committee report for the May meeting, so he is going to do the report out for this, and then I will pick up on the special meeting.
You've been voluntold. Thank you. We knew. Pass it off. Thank you, Vice Chair Carey. Floor is yours.
Thank you. So, law and licensing at our monthly meeting on May 3rd took the following actions, and we're submitting them for the board's consideration. Item 5.2 was recognition of progress, achievements, or improvements, and there is no motion for the board on that particular item. On 5.3, this was the application by the Wayne County School District for a waiver request of the 5-day-a-week rule. And the motion for the board is the committee recommends that the board approve Wayne County School District's request for a waiver from R277-419, paren 4. And this motion passed committee unanimously, but with several questions and reservations and a request for additional information, if that's correct, Angie. And it's my understanding that that information is now in backup, and would welcome discussion of that motion, if any. Oh, that's chair's job, sorry.
No, that's okay. Board member, question, comments,
I just keep.
lights? Not seeing. Do we have somebody from Wayne County here? Is that the question? Okay.
I'd also love to speak to that. This is Kristen.
Okay. Let's go ahead, Member Norton, and then if we have questions for Superintendent Shelley, we can invite him up. Member Norton?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I would like to support this motion. Oh, we haven't made a motion. Did I put a motion on?
No, it was
Yeah,
moved.
there is a motion.
Vice Chair Carey put it on the floor.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I would like to speak to the motion. As I look at students throughout the entire state, I am concerned about Friday attendance, period. And in an area where the families are gone a lot and that there's full excused reasons for students, that also means then that the children are going to be gone too. I can see that this would be a great way to supplement their education, because then instead of just being, have the parents call them in and excuse them as absent students, they instead will be getting those extra hours being added into their schedule Monday through Thursday, so that they are getting quality instruction a little bit longer every day, but to give them the help that they will need, so that on Fridays, when they are gone, and they're going to be gone, I am surprised that there are many weeks that I will have 8 out of my 30 students gone on Fridays for family-related activities. So I like this, and I wholeheartedly support it, and think that Wayne County has done their due diligence, and we should be supporting their local district.
Thank you, Member Norton. Superintendent Shelley, thank you for joining us. Would you like to speak to this? We'd be happy to hear your input, or just open it to comments or questions if you didn't want to, if you didn't have anything prepared. Okay. Board members, questions, comments? Not seeing any. I think we can put it to a vote. So the motion is that the board approve Wayne County School District's request for a waiver from R277-419 sub 4. Voting is open. Member Bogus. Member Norton.
Yes.
Member Bogus. Do you have anybody else online? Okay. All right, we're not hearing Member Bogus. We have a unanimous passing, 14-0. Thank you, Superintendent Shelley, for joining us. Appreciate your time and effort on this. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
Yep. Yeah, the second motion is on 5.4. Garfield County School District, in particular Boulder Elementary, has requested a waiver request. Is that?
Okay.
Yep. Has requested a waiver. This is a renewal. The motion for the board is that the committee recommends that the board approve Garfield County School District's request for a waiver renewal from R277-419, paren 4. This motion passed committee unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments to the motion? Seeing none? Yes, back to Vice Chair Carey.
If I could just speak to the motion, I'm in support of it, but I have seen, and I think we all have, that there is an uptick of these applications from school districts. I think the one we just approved was not a particular school, but the entire district. And I haven't seen this before, but I see it now in these applications, and that is that schools are saying, well, since our neighboring school or our neighboring district has gone to the 4-day week, we need to move to the 4-day week. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do think that it puts this board in the position of always reacting to these requests rather than really going proactively and saying, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because it's clear that the more districts that onboard with the 4-day week puts increasing pressure on those that are not moving in that direction. So I would just ask that the board, maybe in particular board leadership, we look at this issue proactively and say, is this really the trend that we want to the trend we want to continue on? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carey. And that's Member Bogus, go ahead. Oh, Member Norton, excuse me. Okay, we got you, Member Norton.
I appreciate those comments that board member Terry just made, and one of the things is that our world has really changed in the last 4, 5, 6 years, and there are so many activities that are being scheduled, not necessarily school related, but there are some school related activities on Friday, but it's competitions of every wild imaginable way of kids to compete that happen on Friday. There's on Friday and Saturday. And it's growing, it's not getting smaller, it's also getting younger and younger and younger as these competitive teams and groups proliferate throughout the year. It's busy. So I think that might be part of it. I don't know what we can do about it, but I think that we should address it. We maybe should, ask for some consensus on ways that we can keep these kids educated at the same time. And I also would like to speak, for those of you that are not familiar with Central Utah, Boulder is about as remote can be. As a matter of fact, I was with the Garfield County superintendent and some of their school board members, and one of those school board members runs a very lovely Dutch breakfast house in Boulder. But he says they are so remote out in Boulder that when people in Penguin say, "Where are you from?" and he said Boulder, they think it's Colorado. They don't even know that they. And he said that jokingly, but at the same time, having been out there a few times in my life, it is very remote, and you don't get to go to the doctor in an hour. You're gone for the day. So I think we need to consider this. Garfield's done a great job with their education there, and I think that we should give it careful consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Norton. Member Lear?
Yes, thank you. And I realize that my comments are very similar to Member Norton's, Member Carey's. I've been watching these requests for waivers for almost 20 years, and they did start as very occasional, and usually the schools were extremely remote. And and they were very legitimate requests. But I agree, we are at a time where we need to come, and I don't like rules, I don't like adding administrative burdens, but we need to add some kind of criteria so that there's some consistency to our decisions. And then I also, so schools and districts, LEAs know what to expect. I'm also concerned as we add a rule that we need to add some kind of, everybody's going to groan, and I feel like it too. We need to add some monitoring process to this, because we grant the waivers and it's just, and then it's sort of done, and we don't follow often closely enough the scores of the students, the community satisfaction, a lot of other kinds of issues that I think we're responsible for if we grant the waiver. So I think we need to look at a more systematized process for granting these waivers, instead of looking at these on a case-by-case basis and usually being sympathetic, but with no pattern or really thoughtful process. So I hope we can do that in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Lair. And I'll just add, we had one that came out of my district a couple months ago. You get sports, academics, lunch, transportation, all those things become challenging, right? And so the one that was out there in Duchesne had a lot of division on how it would affect kids. So I think it raises some good questions there. All right, further discussion. I think we're back to the motion then, unless Member Carey was. The motion then is that the board approve Garfield County School District's request for a waiver renewal from R277-419-4. More board members, please vote. Member Bogus? Member Norton?
Yes.
Okay. Was it? Okay. That was Member Bogus is a yes. Member Norton? Norton and Bogus. I think that was Bogus. Member Norton. She spoke for it, but I don't want to take that as a yes. Member Norton? Oh, okay. Somebody want to text? All right. Well, let's see. I don't think we have her as a yes yet. We got 15 up there.
Well, he thought it was.
Yeah, we don't have Member Norton yet. We just have Member Bogus, right? Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We can't.
Are you still voting?
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Member Norton.
Okay, board member Norton is a yes.
Okay. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
Sherman,
Yes.
man,
Sure.
there is a overwhelming echo that I can't handle it hardly anymore.
Is this? I'm not sure. I assume you've disconnected, reconnected, all that. Member.
Yeah, and I'm on a headset.
Member Norton, are you hearing an echo?
Wasn't that Norton? Or was that Bogus?
Member Norton?
She's,
I hear an echo when I have my radio on, or my sound system in my car on, so when I talk, I just turn that off, but otherwise, I have it on when I mute it, and then I don't have a problem.
Okay, so sounds like it's probably the headset. We need to. I'm hearing that the suggestion is mute the headset when you're talking. I guess, right? When she's talking. Okay. If you could try to mute the headset the mic on your headset while you're talking, and then you'd still be talking through the device. Correct? I think that might be the problem. All right. Okay, back to Vice Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. The next matter is 5.5, and these are all related, although we'll be addressing them separately, 5.5, 5.6, and 5.7. On 5.5, that's Board Policy 5003, the Student Data Policy Advisory Group Amendment. And the motion before the board is that the committee recommends that the board approve Board Policy 5003, Student Data Policy Advisory Group, Draft 1.
Okay, discussion of the motion. Seeing none. Motion is that the board approve Board Policy 5003, Student Data Policy Advisory Group, Draft 1. Members, please vote. Member Bogus? Norton's a yes. Member Bogus? Member Bogus? Not hearing Member Bogus. That motion passes 14-0. Back to Vice Chair Carey.
This is item 5.6, again addressing Board Policy 5004, Student Data User Advisory Group. This is on repeal, and the motion before the board is that the committee recommends that the board repeal Board Policy 5004, Student Data User Advisory Group.
Okay, discussion on that motion. Seeing none. Motion is the board repeal Board Policy 5004, Student Data User Advisory Group. Members, please vote. Member Bogus? Member Norton? Oh, do we have to hold on that or cancel? All right, hold off.
Copy did not take.
All right, we're open. Members, please vote. Member Bogus? Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus? We may have some muting problems, either the device or the headset. We've got 11 yeses. I don't think we heard Member Bogus. Member Bogus, did you vote? Still missing 2, I believe.
Straight.
Norton was a yes. We've got members straight. There we go. All right. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. This item is 5.7, Board Policy 5005, Student Data Governance Advisory Group. This is on repeal. And the motion before the full board is the committee recommends that the board repeal Board Policy 5005, Student Data Governance Advisory Group.
Okay, discussion on that motion. Member Lear.
It probably was more appropriate to the very first motion, but if we note, I've been on this policy advisory group and one of the 3 variations since I started on the board in 2016, and they recently the board leadership recently chose another member to be on the single policy advisory group. And I just wanted to point out that the policy that we now passed allows, and they're non-voting members, the board members are non-voting members, but I wanted to point out that the policy allows for 1 or more. So I would maybe hope that the board leadership could reconsider and maybe let me be on I'm requesting to be on that single policy board advisory group because I have a lot of history with that, and I actually was the one that initiated the request to reduce it to 1 group that would be more efficient, more effective, more meaningful. So I'd like to be on that again, and because the policy allows for 2 board members,
Thank you, Member Lear.
or more
Okay,
than 1. Thanks.
duly noted. Let's see. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. This is item 5.8, required school counseling report. Oh, we're too late? No.
I'm sorry. That was a comment to the.
Jim tossed it to me.
Yep, that was on me. That one was all me.
Would you restate that motion on that vote?
Yeah, the motion is that the board repeal Board Policy 5005, Student Data Governance Advisory Group. Okay, got it.
Member Bogus, your vote? Member Norton, your vote? Yes.
5.7.
A yes for Norton? Member Bogus? Yes. A yes for Bogus. Oh, that was still Kristen? Member Bogus? Thank you.
So I think we're having trouble. YouTube is not picking up comments made by our online members, so we're trying to resolve that just for public awareness and channeling it through a couple of phones, I believe. Got an AWACS plane recruited, and we're sending it over the Horn of Africa, or I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm stalling because we're trying to make sure we're connected. How are we looking?
Not very good.
Okay. There you go.
Could you tell us a good joke?
Anybody else?
Recite the Gettysburg
Give me some muddy waters. I'd like to hear Randy do some blues. Does he know any Muddy Waters? That would be kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
Scudder's. All right, how are we looking? Oh, thank you. Jeez. That passed 14-0. I got sidetracked wondering about those committee appointments. Thank you, sir. That was unanimous. 5.7. Oh, you're ready to switch though.
What are we holding for?
We're just making sure we can channel the board members through, right? Do we still need to wait? For Kristen and Christina.
Emily, are you able to go over or not? You want me to call her? I don't, if we can hear Kristen, we're good. No, I can't get it forwarded to a voice message.
We can hear you now. Is that Kristen? Okay. Yeah, we got you. I think we're trying to get Christina connected. All right, we're not hearing from Christina, but I think we have text contact, right? So if she wants to talk, we can,
Well, it's
or
not
should
picking
we?
up on when I call, it's not picking up. It's going right to voicemail.
Oh,
Emily, are you able to get in contact with her, or are you still waiting? Okay, so we may need to look ahead.
all right. Well, let's take it back to Vice Chair Carey, and we're trying to connect. Member Bogus, if you can hear us, we can't hear you, but yeah, could you call or text if you'd like to speak? We want to make sure that the public audience can hear you, and we had trouble with your comments getting through to the YouTube channel. All right. Well, let's see. We lost Member Green. Let's go back to Vice Chair Carey.
Thank you. This is item 5.8, and that is required school counseling report. And the motion before the board is the committee recommends that the board approve the ratio plan submitted by Fast Forward Charter and Grand School District for the 2024-2025 school year. This motion passed committee unanimously.
Okay. Questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, let's vote. The motion is that the board approve the ratio plan submitted by Fast Forward Charter and Grand School District for the 2024-2025 school year. Voting is open. Member Norton? Yes. Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus? Don't have Member Bogus. And we've got a couple more to vote. Oh, we're missing Member Hymas, Chair Hymas. One more. We should have 13 then. We think we're just missing Hymas and Bogus. There we go. That passes unanimously, 13-0, with members Hymas and Bogus not voting. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
On item 5.9, this is R277-710, intergenerational poverty interventions in public schools. This came up for repeal, and the recommended action for the board is that the board repeal R277-710, intergenerational poverty interventions in public schools, on second and final reading, and this motion passed committee unanimously.
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is that the board repeal R277-710, intergenerational poverty interventions in public schools, on second and final reading. Voting is open. Member Norton? Yes. Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus? Got one more then. Okay, that passes unanimously with members Hymas and Bogus not voting. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
This is item 5.10, R277-126, Utah Fits All Scholarship on repeal. And the motion for the board is the committee recommends that the board repeal R277-126, Utah Fits All Scholarship, on second and final reading. And Chair, I would also like to speak to the motion.
Okay, go ahead. To you, Vice Chair Carey.
Yeah, there were several comments online, and I've received several emails as well from individuals who are concerned when they saw this that there is an effort by the board to repeal the Utah Fits All Scholarship. And I just wanted to put on the record that that is not the case. That is not what's happening with this particular item, but rather this board was tasked with developing an appeals process for the Utah Fits All Scholarship. Subsequent legislation out of the legislature absolved this board of that responsibility, and all that's happening now with this particular vote would be doing away with the rule that is no longer relevant because of subsequent legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carey. Comments, questions from board members? Seeing none. Motion is that the board repeal R277-126, Utah Fits All Scholarship, on second and final reading. Voting is open. Member Norton? Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus? Okay. We're not expecting Chair Hymas remotely for the next little bit. He'll be absent for a little bit. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, we're missing 2, I think. If members want to vote. And we're missing 1. Okay. That passes 13-0 unanimously, and back to member Vice Chair Carey.
No. This is item 5.11, R277-629, paid professional hours for educators amendment. And the recommended action for the board is that the board approve R277-629, paid professional hours for educators, draft 2, on second and final reading, and this matter passed committee unanimously.
Thank you. Comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, the motion is that the board approve R277-629, paid professional hours for educators, draft 2, on second and final reading. Voting is open. Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Norton's a yes. Do we have Member Bogus?
Yes.
Member Bogus is a yes. Okay. Let's see, we're just missing 1, I believe. Oh, there we go. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Vice Chair Carey.
This is item 5.12, R277-800, Utah Schools of the Deaf and Blind amendment. The motion for the board is that the committee recommends that the board approve R277-800, Utah Schools of the Deaf and Blind, draft 1, on second and final reading. This motion passed committee unanimously.
Okay, members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is that the board approve R277-800, Utah Schools of the Deaf and Blind, draft 2, on second and final reading. Please, board members, please vote. Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Bogus? Member Bogus? Let's see, we got a few more. Yeah, one more. Okay. And is Member Bogus with us? All right, that passes unanimously, 13-0. Member Hymas and Member Bogus not voting. Back to you, Vice Chair.
Item 5.13 is R277-926, certification of residential treatment center special education program. This is an amendment and continuation. The motion for the board is that the committee recommends that the board continue and approve R277-926, certification of residential treatment center special education program, draft 1, on second and final reading. This motion passed committee unanimously.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing no lights, the motion is that the board continue to approve R277-926, certification of residential treatment center special education program, draft 1, on second and final reading. Voting is open. Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Norton's a yes. Do we have Member Bogus?
No.
Member Bogus is a no. And, wait, no, we need one more, I think. Well, we don't have.
You're right, one more.
Is it? Okay. Let's see. I think we have one board member. Member Green, well, you can, okay. That passes 13-1 with Member Hymas not voting. And the no vote being Member Bogus. Thank you. Back to Vice Chair Carey.
This is item 5.14, R277-331, stipends for future educators. This is a new, and the recommended action is that This board approve R277-331, stipends for future educators, draft 3 on second and final reading, and this motion passed committee unanimously.
Thank you, Vice Chair Earl.
Yeah, I have one amendment on line 26. We changed university to institution of higher education, but then on line 26, we have an ineligible student teachers university shall confirm. It needs to, and I don't know, maybe that's a technical change, but it needs to be changed to institution of higher education. I'm working off of Draft three.
I think, right?
Is that the draft that was moved? Okay.
Okay, so
It's
the
just
motion-
aligning the language. We changed it in 25. It should be changed in 26. So I'm making that motion.
Is there a second? Second. Any comment, discussion on that motion?
Yes, I will.
Okay, the motion is a motion to amend from Member Earl to amend line 26 to replace university with Institute of Higher Education. Any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, please vote. Oh, hold on.
Institution.
25 says institution. Is that what we said, or is that, okay. Got it, okay. So it's replacing university with institution of higher education. Please vote. Member Norton? Yes. Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus?
Can I take it off? Can I take it?
Member Bogus? Okay, we're missing Member Bogus, Member Hymas. That passes unanimously. So the motion as amended is that the board approve R277-331 stipends for future educators draft 3 as amended on second and final reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Hey, we're cranking over there. Thank you. We're throwing them at you. You feel like you're in the dunking booth? We're just chucking them. Thank you for cranking through it. Okay, Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Bogus? Okay, we need one more. Okay, that passes unanimously with members Bogus and Hymas not voting. Back to Vice Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. This is item 5.5, R277-322, Local Education Agency Codes of Conduct, by way of amendment and continuation. And the action for the board would be that the board continue and amend R277-322, Local Education Agency Codes of Conduct, Draft 2 on second and final reading. This motion passed committee unanimously.
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments? Discussion on the motion. Member Klein. Do we have a light for her? Klein. Sorry.
All right, I have a motion to amend, and that would be on line 28. If someone's ready to take my amendment, I would read a staff member. It currently reads a staff member and student sharing any sexually explicit or lewd communication, image, or photograph. I would amend it to take out and student, and then add after sharing, exhibiting or making available any sensitive material
And then it would continue on. Sexually explicit or lewd communication, image, or photograph. I don't know. Do I need to repeat it? Let's see. Or making available any sensitive material. Yes.
Can I ask a question? Do we need to define sensitive material?
If we want to put a reference in for the 53G 103.
I'm not sure. It's defined there, but not here, right?
It's not in the list of it. Oh, and you could add objectively sensitive material. Objective sensitive material. Is sensitive material defined in R277-100? Because it's not defined in this specific rule, but if it's defined there, then we would be okay. Unless you want to put a reference as defined in 53G 10103.
I think that's right, as defined in, well, I guess we're.
Except
53G-10-103.
Yeah. What's the term you're using? Objective or?
Objective sensitive. Oh, I don't know. It's not in our rules yet.
we probably need to update our definitions rule then.
Chair. I don't know if that
Mr.
needs.
Carey?
I don't know if that needs a second, but I'm willing to second for purposes of discussion.
It does need a second, yes.
Yeah, I'll
So it's
second
been
it
seconded.
then. And I do have a question, and this could be to the maker of the motion or just generally, but unless this is limited to conduct that takes place on the school premises or school grounds, it appears that this would also cover constitutionally protected conduct. So, right, for consenting adults. So I just want to make sure that the rule that as it's written, and that may require a staff member, and I see Ben standing up, to address this, but insofar that it is limited to the school itself, absolutely I would second the motion to the extent that this is now covering consenting conduct between adults off premises, less inclined to do so.
Director Rasmussen, did you want to address that?
Thank
Can
you,
we
Ben
get him-
Rasmussen, Director of Law and
we-
Professional Practices. This is part of the definition of sexual conduct, and if you look at that, it specifically says that that's between a staff member and a student. So this doesn't affect consenting relationships between adults.
If
She
we
only took
strike student,
Look on line 24. This,
oh, so you're saying it was redundant as it was used
perhaps. yes.
originally? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
this-
Then
Okay.
give me
Yeah,
enough
Carol,
time and I'll catch up. Okay. But wait, there's.
Yeah, it's still in line 24. So, so this is just a sub part of that. So I don't think it's
So line 25 would retain staff member and a student, correct? Line 25? Okay. Yes, Member Davis?
Yeah, I just have a question because the objective of sensitive material as defined in code, doesn't that have to go through the review process to determine if it is, and if so, it would be removed? So isn't that already covered in the code that covers objective sensitive material? I don't want to confuse the two things with people, because for it to be determined objective sensitive material as defined in 53G, it has to go through a process to be determined that it is so, and then it has to be removed.
So I'm just going to make a suggestion, piggybacking on yours perhaps, that in the objective sensitive material as determined under section 53G 10103, is that kind of where you're getting? As determined under that code rather than as defined, or I don't know.
That if they go ahead and share material that has been removed and defined as objective sensitive material, then they're going to get in big trouble? Like, is that what I'm understanding we're trying to say? Because
It's my understanding.
I
Member
think
Klein?
it's just
So as determined would mean that the process has run
has
and
already
you now
happened.
can't use it.
And so, like,
or
this
as
would
defined.
be assuming someone's going to take removed material and then intentionally giving it to a student.
I think that's the intent.
So then I think we need to define that it's been removed by the,
Well, that's why I said as
Committee.
determined rather than as defined. Does that not get there? As determined would mean it followed
Well,
the process under 103 and it's been determined to be
as
objectively.
determined by the committee.
Well,
Because
that
you
gets
could
a little
say an
longer, but
individual
You could just say you could say as determined under 103.
as reviewed. It's the
The
process.
determination. Well,
As
I'll
determined
back
in
out.
review process. As determined in review process.
Let's put it to the maker. We've got a lot of potentially friendly language bouncing around. I would think that's the idea, but let's check with the maker. The question is whether the reference to code would be to objective sensitive materials as determined through the process in 103 or something to that effect. Am I saying it right? I'm channeling Member Davis here, but does that kind of get at the intent? Correct. I just don't know how much detail we need to reference in 103 or if it can just say as determined. Now under 29 we have both review process and then a statewide application. That all sounds right. Deputy Stallings.
If I may,
Join
thank you,
us.
Chair. Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent Policy. Just wanted to put into context, there's 3 different rules and laws that would apply to sensitive materials. And just as a reminder, code and R277628 would be the 2 sections of code that define what is sensitive materials or not. 217 is the professional standards that educators are expected to adhere to, and state that if an educator does not comply with or violates the other 2, that they can be their license can be impacted. This rule is a code of conduct, meaning it's an expectation. It's something to say, these are our expectations, and we want you to proactively, almost like an assurance, say that you kind of swear, or you are stating that you will adhere to those. So the reason I wanted to give that context is the legal requirement and anything that would relate to their license is more in 217. This is more of a, Here you have a code of conduct, and these are our expectations for you. And so I do think, Chair Moss, to your point, I think you were saying versus defined, which may be difficult for an educator on his or her own to be able to determine that on their own. Changing that to determine seems to make sense, because then it's stating if something has been found to be a sensitive material, you are committing to not distributing it, etc.
Thank you. And then, Member Davis' clarification, do we need more detail as determined through, excuse me. Well, let's send this to the maker and see whether these are friendly or whether we need a motion to amend. So, Member Klein, we've sort of got some potentially friendly language. We just need to see if that is in fact friendly and if there's an objection, or whether we need to tee it up as a motion. That's friendly. Any objection from the body? Hearing no objection, amendments, that amended motion is amended. So any discussion to that motion?
Can I?
Oh, yes, sorry.
This isn't really discussion. Sorry, I was looking on 58. So if I confused anyone, instead of up where we were at, or down on 57, so I was confused why we were moving it there, but it's the top piece. So I apologize if there was any confusion.
Okay, I don't see any lights. Then the motion from Member Klein to amend is to amend line 28 to strike "and student" and add after sharing the language "exhibiting or making available any objective sensitive material as determined through the review process described in section 53G-10-103, or" that language would be inserted. So seeing no more lights, let's vote. Oh, we'll wait. We're ready whenever. Yes. Okay. And did you have a comment before we start the vote? No. Okay. Voting is open. Maybe. It's open, but it's gray. Oh, thank you. All right, we are there. Member Norton. That is. You got bells and whistles we didn't know existed. Member Norton? Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus? Yes. Member Bogus, is a yes. Got two more. That motion passes 12-2 with the no votes being members Lear and Reel. All right, so the motion then is as amended, that the board continue and amend R277-322 Local Education Agency Codes of Conduct, Draft 2 as amended, on second and final reading. Any final discussion to that motion as amended? Back to Member Klein and Member Carey. Oh, all right. I don't know who's up first. Did I get this right? I think we did. Member Klein. Member Carey? Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Member Klein.
So I would like to make motion on line 39, where it says, shall avoid boundary violations, shall avoid, so I would strike shall and avoid and replace it with may not commit. And I can speak to that.
Is there a second? Second from Member Green. Back to you, Member Klein, if you'd like to speak to the motion.
Yes, so shall avoid is kind of an oxymoron. Like if it's a shall, then it should be a may not. And then commit is the only thing I could come up with as to connect that together. So a statement is, it's a statement that a staff member may not commit boundary violations as defined in Rule R277-210 with students, is how it would read instead of a staff member shall avoid boundary violations.
Okay. So the motion is shall, replace shall avoid with may not commit. Comment, question, Member Lear?
I think back to
She got it.
Deputy Superintendent Stallings' explanation. If this is not R277-217, this is a statement that public employees will do these things. And not all public employees, even in schools, are held to the standards that teachers are. So to try to make that so, I think is very, well, it hasn't had much discussion to begin with, but there may be occasions when a teacher's aide or a janitor or somebody who's a staff member is not in the same, has the same responsibility to students that a teacher does. And I think to make this so, to make it a may not, suggests a stronger disciplinary statement than I want to make.
Member Klein?
So if you look down in the rule, there are many other may not statements that are very particular to bad behavior. It doesn't shy away from it in any other place in the rule to have that kind of language. So whether or not it becomes a UPAC licensure issue by them, by referring back to this rule or a violation of this rule is, beside the point, and I would actually change on my motion if I can to, so it's may not engage in instead of commit. Yeah. So, I mean, for example, it says down below, may not touch a student in a way that makes them uncomfortable, may not participate in sexual conduct with a student. And there's several more.
Okay, further discussion, Member Green? Or Member Lear and then Member Green?
Wanted to respond to say, I think boundary violations are particularly a gray area where I think it's very hard to sometimes discern if it's a boundary violation or not. And I'm willing to hold teachers to that standard because they have a special and described and job related and not just job related, but license related responsibility to do this. I am not prepared to do this with every single employee in a school that might be closer to the same age as the student. And I think all of the may nots that are farther down, the touch is a little more specific, is more specific, not a little more. And sexual conduct, more specific, where boundary violations are as broad as texting and communicating and fraternizing. And I'm not prepared to say shall not when the subject matter itself is so hard to define.
Okay, thank you, Member Lear. Member Green? And then Vice Chair Earl.
So just two things then. I'm trying to make sure that this line 39 then is attached to all of the lists that follow. Is that correct? That's my first question.
I don't believe, well,
So the shall avoid.
I think it's separate. I think A is freestanding and then it goes into B unless somebody sees it differently. I think it's a freestanding separate one.
Okay.
And boundary
But the
violations.
shall avoid is associated with 210. That is correct?
Yeah,
Well, boundary violations as,
defined.
I think it's
As-
limited to boundary violations. Let me just.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
I'm
but
bringing.
boundary violation is defined in 210, so that's the reference. 210-2 sub 6A.
Okay. So then I'm just trying to understand the difference between the shall and the must. I know that the Federal Rules of Appellate Procedure uses must, not shall. And I think, and there's may not is good. I'm hearing this, a bird.
That's the proposed motion would use may not rather
May
than
not,
shall
yeah.
avoid, I guess. Is that what
And
you're-
I know that the case as far as interpreting shall versus must is extensive with hundreds of cases that spend time interpreting shall. So if I'm hearing Member Klein correctly, are we trying to mitigate those challenges or draw better lines on what shall or must not happen? And that's to the maker of the motion.
Member Klein, would you like to respond?
Well, again, shall avoid, how do you define that? You either, it's either okay to do or it's not okay. And in order to make it consistent, the language consistent throughout the rule, it should be a may not. That's the language we always use on things that we're saying that's a no-no. So may not is, and I think it's appropriate.
That answer the question. As I see it, shall avoid means what were you required to do? Avoid running into the kid, right? Whereas
I would say shall not,
shall
but
avoid
that's
would-
not
would
the
raise
language
that.
we use
Yeah.
in the rules. We
Shall
use may
avoid.
not.
Asks the question of what does it take to avoid, whereas your language says you may not do this. I think, at least as I think that's the idea, is you do focus on the language they can't. Okay, I think we got answered. Member Davis?
Shall avoid requires an intentionality about thinking about what is possible. Obviously, they may not engage in those things. All of those things are illegal. But for example, a teacher called me last week, super upset because a student had accused her of hitting him. She had touched his shoulder and said, "Close your computer." None of the other students acted like anything was strange. She didn't even remember it. She said, "I must have touched his shoulder and said, 'Close your computer.' It's the only time I can think I was even close enough to be in his personal proximity." But she didn't even remember doing that. And she was being accused of hitting. So, and I said to her, when I was a principal, I used to say to my teachers, do not touch students during discipline ever, because it can be misinterpreted. And when you shall avoid, it means you are intentionally thinking, how can I avoid even, possibly being misconstrued or what have you? It really requires extra in my mind. May not is just kind of an obvious don't do the illegal things clearly, but shall avoid means you really need to be thinking ahead and avoiding even the opportunity for that to be done or misunderstood or what have you.
Okay, further comment, Member Klein and then Member Lear or Reel? I don't know who that light is. Member Lear, so yes. We need a, oh, there we go.
So it's very, it's these things that we're saying they may not engage in are clearly defined in R277-210. So it's not like it's, gray area. They're defined. So the teachers need to be aware of what those defined boundary violations are and not engage in them. So we have a lot of problems in our schools right now because there's squishiness in there with should or shall avoid. That's not cutting it because those that want to violate boundaries can work around that kind of soft language.
Okay.
Can you push your?
But so I see the list there, but if you go to Rule R277-210, it's a much more defined list of grooming kind of behaviors that used to be included, if I remember right, under our old grooming definition, that they since took out grooming and replaced it with specific examples of what constitutes boundary violations in order to make it more clear for teachers what they can and cannot engage in. So we need stronger language so that teachers or educators that want to groom or engage in those boundary violations can't point to the soft language and see it as simply a suggestion.
Okay, and in quick comment, I think we're referencing Rule 210. 210 defines boundary violation means to mean crossing verbal, physical, emotional, and social lines that an educator must maintain to ensure structure, security, and predictability in an educational environment. I just, going to the question earlier, educator versus staff, it looks like 210 is focused on educator more narrowly, and then part 6B of that rule talks about discussing an educator's personal life or personal issues, some other things. So there's a reference that incorporates quite a number of, as Member Klein pointed out, definitional items. A number of those do mention educators. Member Lear?
And back to member Davis's point, there has to be an element of intent. I'm reminded of a situation I worked with when I was in private practice of a teacher that was accused of sexual harassment towards students, and there was actually a video of the situation, and it showed this teacher and it was junior high students walking out of a classroom, a very crowded doorway classroom, where he had to touch or move sort of out of the way the students in order to get through. There was no intent to violate anyone's boundaries or any kind of sexual harassment. He was moving through a doorway in a crowded room. So there was no element of intent. And that's why I think Member Davis points out very well that they shall avoid, because it obviously happens in crowded classrooms. And again, going beyond teachers who are held to a higher standard, and Member Klein said it herself, teachers, this involves all staff members. And I think that the intent element is important, and shall avoid is the appropriate language.
All right, thank you. Further comment or question? Seeing none, the motion to amend is to replace shall avoid with, oh, is that Member Norton?
Yes. And this is to you, Chair Moss. But it could be to any of our legal experts in the room. I have always thought that shall is very strong language. I did not know that before I got on the board, but that it seems that we've said over and over, shall is a strong language. And now I'm hearing may not trump shall. Is that correct or not?
You know, I don't know. I mean, case law myself is all over the place, so I think I'd have to refer to somebody else. I think, I guess, one clarification here, I think it's not so much the word shall, but it's shall avoid, turning into may not. So I think shall avoid requires affirmative action, may not means you don't do X.
So if I may,
Ben, take it away.
in rule writing, what we're directed is that when we want to make something mandatory, we use shall. When we want to prohibit something, we use may not. And then if we want something to be discretionary, we say may. So this is just another way of saying, this is making this stronger, where we had avoid before. This makes it prohibited to commit the conduct as opposed to just shall is required to avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, in my view, the word avoid is the key one we're talking about here. Shall, must. That's interchangeable, but avoid is, yeah. Member Davis?
I just Googled the definition in Oxford Dictionary of avoid, and it is to keep away from or stop oneself from doing something. So you shall keep away and stop yourself from doing this list of things.
Okay. Member Norton, did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Can't hear you. All right, thank you. Member Bogus, I understand, has a hand up. Member Bogus? Okay, we understand Member Bogus had a comment, but we can't hear you if you're speaking. I understand you may be on mute. Member Green, did you have a comment or question? Okay, let's go to that. We can come back if we get Member Bogus.
I think I'm just referencing back to just clarifying on the may not, and then the rule that it is clear in 210 where it talks about the boundary violation does not include. And so some of the examples that we heard, you know, brushing in the hall and the controversies there, and they figure that out, that falls under what's in this rule already. So boundary violation does not include, and it lists those. So it really is, I do agree with this motion. I'll vote yes for it. I do think it adds a clarifier, tightens it up, lets 210 shine, and really clears, you know, maybe some cloudy waters there.
Okay, thank you, Member Green. Member Bogus, do we have you with us? Okay, I think we are ready to vote. So the motion to amend is from Member Klein, replace the word shall avoid with may not engage in on line 39. Let's open the voting. Sorry. Oh, Member Norton?
No.
Member Norton is a no. Member Bogus? Member Bogus? Don't see Member Bogus. Let's see. Oh, geez. Excuse me. Okay. That motion fails, I think, because we're missing members Hymas and Bogus. So that motion fails 6-7. The yes votes being Chair Moss, Vice Chair Earl, Member Wood, Member Green, Member Klein, and Member Carey. All right, so that brings us back to the underlying motion. Further discussion of that motion? Additional amendments, back to Member Klein.
Oops.
I would move to amend lines 54 and 55. So it would read, a statement that a staff member may not participate in sexual conduct, or, this is the part I'm adding, or engage in grooming behaviors towards a student or group of students.
Okay, is there a second? Second, my Member Green. Back to you, Member Klein. 58, was it?
54 and 55. Well, it's the boundaries again. So we could change it to boundary violations. If we want to change grooming behaviors to boundary violations. This is a different line in the rule. Or engage in grooming behaviors, or sorry, engage in boundary violations with a student or group of students. Works. I don't know if toward or with is better. I think toward is better. Let me keep it as toward. And maybe after boundary violations as defined in R 277, 210.
Okay, is that framed up accurately? Boundary violations, fine sentence. Okay, is there a second? Did we get a second on that? Emily did? Okay. I think you addressed it. You opened it up for comment. Question, Member Wood, Member Lear?
I'm just wondering how this statement with the additional lines, as is, it's very specific to sexual. How does it with line 39 that we just discussed? It's the same. It's another statement saying it's the same statement now.
That's a good question, I guess. Is this the same amendment that was proposed earlier to say may not engage in boundary violations? Is that a parliamentary question or more a conceptual question?
Asking, it's putting it in twice is what it's doing. It's putting it, it's in up above and it's down here now.
Well,
May not.
yeah, so 39 was proposed to say may not. That was defeated and it went back to shall avoid. This one would be another may not. It would be it seems like the same, but let's go to Member Lear.
Well, you figure out if that's a parliamentary problem, which I think it is. What are we going to do about the custodians that are the same age as the students in rural areas, especially? What are we going to do about the teachers' aides who are sometimes boyfriend, girlfriend with some of the students in rural areas and not so rural areas? This, I think we're conflating both this rule with the requirements for teachers, and we're also conflating this, I promise this is a code of conduct, with things that have disciplinary consequences. And I just think we need to read this for what it is and help that, and not hope, but assume that employees are going to act appropriately for their age and their circumstances, but they're not teachers in many cases. And I think we are making this less clear, harder for schools to get employees that they desperately need at all levels.
I have maybe a piggyback question for Angie or somebody. If we require this to be put in the code of conduct, does that necessarily attach then to some level of discipline at the local level? Our 217 talks about discipline through UPAC, right? In this rule, we're talking about requirement of a local code of conduct, which I assume the LEA enforces. So do we know how this will be enforced? Does it vary?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it does vary because if the personnel is an educator and has a license, of course there's licensing action. But this rule requires LEAs to establish policies related to their codes of conduct. They could have differing types of suspension or discipline that could occur for both educators and non-educators that would be more in the employment space. So yes, it's not necessarily statewide the same. There's discretion at the LEA level.
Okay, so whatever standards we put in here, we're not entirely clear how they will be enforced, unless it rises to the level of coming to UPAC, in which case we control it. But
well, at the very minimum, they'd have to have what we have in the rule, and then include other things as they see fit.
But I mean, their enforcement measures would be up to them. So we don't necessarily control penalties for this.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless it's 217 to your point.
Yeah, right. Comes back to us. Okay. Which is teachers. Okay. Additional comment, question? Not seeing any. The motion is to add the words or engage in boundary violations as defined in Rule 277-210 toward a student or group of students after conduct on line 54. Seeing no further lights, please vote. Member Norton? Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus?
Yes.
Member Bogus is a yes. Oh, I didn't vote yes. Watching and waiting instead of voting. Okay, we're missing, did we get Bogus? I think we did. We got Bogus and Norton. Missing one still, are we? What's that? We're,
So we're good now. We got 14.
who are we missing though? Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, sorry, that passes, the noes being, it passes 14. 12-2, the noes being members Lear and Reel. Yeah,
Now we have two different statements within the rule. Shall avoid boundary violations and may not participate in sexual conduct or boundary violations. Which is it? For that 16-year-old janitor, he needs to know.
as a point of procedure, I think you may not do it and you shall avoid it, I guess, is the effect of what we just did.
Well, but shall avoid, if you read it together.
Yeah, so
I think it's sending a mixed message. All right, but
one is a negative, one is a positive, avoidance, whatever
shall
that,
avoid and may not.
yeah.
All right, I think that's a mixed message, and I think it's not helpful for the 16-year-old janitor.
Okay. Further comment or question? Did you have additional amendments? Okay.
I'd like to move to amend line 58 and 59. I would take out regarding and add in that a staff member may not that a staff member may not. And then you'd have to take the ing off of providing also. So it would read, a statement that a staff member may not provide gifts, special favors, or preferential treatment to a student or group of students. And I can speak to that if you want, if there's a second.
Back to you, Mike.
So currently, the way it reads, it just requires the LEA to have a policy that makes a statement regarding providing gifts and special favors. It doesn't say if they say they can do it or can't do it, and I think it lacks clarity there. So staff member may not provide gifts, special favors, or preferential treatment.
Okay, was that seconded already? Member Carey seconded. Discussion of the motion. Member Wood.
So I have a question. What if you have a janitor who likes to give out Tootsie Rolls to kids he sees pick up garbage? This is a statement regarding what is the policy? Maybe that's a no. Maybe they're like, yeah, that'd be great. We have a great, some schools have a bad littering problem in their school. And so he gives a Tootsie Roll to a kid. I don't see that as grooming behavior. I see that as, acknowledging positive.
That's the problem is we're putting language in there that does not allow for the.
Yeah, that says that may not allow that.
And
Vice Chair.
yeah, I'm just looking at like the gifts portion. I think that it becomes really, I think, and I guess because I'm thinking of times when Christmas, I'm just thinking of different times through the year when there is actually something that a teacher does maybe give out, or, maybe someone that works in the school. So this says don't do that at all. It actually is contrary to what, and I think there just has to be something regarding that it can't be, I don't know. And that's why that's there. So I just think there's not that flexibility there. And what we're doing is we're putting restraints in creating a negative environment instead of an environment where people use their judgment. So.
Okay, I've got Member Bogus, but first Deputy Superintendent Stallings, then back to Member Klein.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to share that in R277210, there's some language in there about educators not providing gifts individually, but allowing still gifts to be provided if they're given to all. So we may want to look at the language that's in 210 and use that, because this language would prohibit, for example, one of my kids' teachers gave all the students a bookmark at the end of the school year and said, "You're a shining star. I hope you read over the summer," or something like that. That this language would prohibit that.
Got it. Member Bogus?
We can.
Come up with language for you, like.
Member Bogus, are you with us?
I am, sir. Can you hear me?
We got you now.
Oh, I'm echoing again. Okay, so I'm going to try to talk through it. The concern I have is similar to the other concerns that have been articulated. What I am most concerned about, though, is Member Wood's comment. Oddly enough, it strikes me as interesting because we are prohibited from giving food as an incentive or a reward. And so I don't know how that plays into this. I'm having a really hard time like getting all the information from my listening here. So I'm just wondering if someone could clarify that for me, how that relates to this, and help me understand better. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think Vice Chair Earl's got a response.
Yeah, I'm looking under boundary violations. This is under 210. It says it does not include offering praise, encouragement, and acknowledgement, offering rewards available to all who achieve. And I think that's what's saying. It's for anyone that, and if you have, I don't know, maybe your district or special, particular entity says, we're not going to allow food or whatever to be that, but I don't think that spells that out here. So yeah, anyways.
So this goes to all staff. I think that's one difference. So there is language already in 210 on governing educators. This would be broader. Anybody else? Hands up. Let's see, Member Klein. Member Klein, sorry. Back to you. I think you're the only light on.
Okay.
If you are wanting to
I
speak.
think they're trying to come up with language to take care of those concerns that will still address the issue. And while they're doing that, there is an example, and this isn't on the gift giving part, but and maybe there was a district that allowed an outside organization to host a special graduation for a particular group of students, where they were incentivized to come and participate, and they were recruiting more kids to join that group so that they could be part of that special graduation the next year, hoping to grow this, what they call the Lavender graduation, which is a LGBT specific, which I would call that a grooming if you're incentivizing kids to join so they can be part of this special graduation that is held, and where these kids in particular are celebrated for their particular identity. And it happens to be a sexual identity to boot. So these are issues that are real and that our schools are facing, and schools are partnering with outside organizations so that they can kind of look like they're clean or not violating something. So, that's something that needs to be addressed. Maybe I don't have something prepared for that at this time, but I think this would go a long way to, this could be more clearly understood at the LEA level that these things aren't appropriate. We had one district that said, well, we can do it for groups of students, not just individual students. And so there's a clear misunderstanding of this rule, because it does include groups of students as well. But as far as the gift giving, do you want to speak to?
Well, yes.
So should I speak from here? since I'm
Sure,
here?
whatever.
So I don't normally do this. Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. So we did include the word inappropriate, which matches the language in 210. The language in draft 2 does say may not provide preferential treatment to a student or group of students. So I think that was what you were speaking to, that you cannot give preferential treatment to a group of students. So that updated one now aligns more with the 210 by adding in inappropriate.
And how, is inappropriate defined in that other section?
It is not. I'm looking back at Director Ben Rasmussen because he supports the UPAC committee. That is a case-by-case basis that UPAC, when these allegations come to UPAC, they review the facts and they would look at things like, was it a subgroup of students? Did they have something in common? Did it seem like it was preferential? What does inappropriate mean? And they do that. And I think Ben could speak to that more.
Okay.
I do have a question. 60 prohibits discriminating based on personal identity characteristics. Would that not address the type of thing where you're doing something based on preferential treatment for personal identity characteristic? I worry about, special gifts, or again, I guess the janitor's been brought up, other folks that might not be teachers subject to 210, but might get caught up if they, do something. But looks like 1661 might address the dangerous stuff we're hearing about. Maybe that's just a comment. I see Member Straight, so.
Yes, thank you. As I look over this, I start up at line 32, and the superintendent shall, and then it goes to 2, each LEA, and then we get down to where it has D, E, F, G, H, I, and it goes on for a bit. And that is a statement by the LEA regarding each one of these items. So each LEA determines each one of those items, a statement. That's who's giving the statement. And where's that statement? It's in their policy. Now, I, as an educator, knew and understood the rules in regards to, for example, a gift. A gift could only be worth so much in value depending on your LEA. And they trained you on this when you came into the profession. Now, if you receive a gift and it's over that, you have to make sure that's rectified. For example, some parents say, I want to do something really nice. This teacher's been really wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And they put cash in an envelope and they get a card from the student at school. The teacher opens that. Okay. So what do they do at that point? Well, it's either returned back to the parent or it's reported to the principal and they say, let's put this in a category where this can be used for classroom supplies or whatever. Each LEA has their policy in regards to those types of things. And I don't know why we're micromanaging at the State Board of Education the actions of superintendents and local boards of education. We're given a standard and then they work through it. I guess we could go through and we could define everything and we could take till next July just working through exactly what that policy looks like. We send policies to districts all the time. I should say LEAs, and then they make it work for them. Anyway, I don't think we need to micromanage.
All right, one more comment and then we'll tee it up. Member Klein.
Yes, up on line 37, well, first in 32, it says that the superintendent shall create a model policy or a model code of conduct, appropriate behavior policy. And then on line 37 or 36 and 37, it says the LEA's code of conduct adopted pursuant to subject or subsection 2 may not be less stringent than the model code of conduct appropriate behavior policy described in one. So the LEA makes their model policy based on ours, and theirs may not be less stringent than ours. So ours needs to set a high bar. Otherwise, you know, if our language is squishy, then theirs will be squishy too. So ours sets the standard. That's why when ours says just tell the district to just make a statement regarding, it doesn't tell them regarding, like, it doesn't give them enough specifics. We need to be more clear on our end, or they won't have effective policies on their end.
Okay, seeing no further lights, my comment is I feel like this is addressed for educators in 210 and line 60, 61. So that's reason for my vote. Let's go ahead, unless there are online folks that I'm overlooking. Let us vote. The motion then is to replace regarding providing with that a staff member may not provide inappropriate. Let's see, is it just inappropriate that we're adding?
That was suggested language to, as a
Was that accepted? Okay, so I read the amendment correctly with including the friendly. Okay, on line 58. Okay, board members, please vote. Member Norton?
Okay, so I can't see it. So inappropriate is included, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
Just
Member
briefly,
Hymas.
I walked in the middle of this, so I'm going to abstain. I'm usually not that guy, but I'm going to let everybody know.
Okay, Member Bogus. Your vote? Member Bogus, okay. Let's see, we're missing a few here, or maybe we're not. We got 12, 13, that's everybody. We got. Member Norton, did you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, is inappropriate included?
It is.
Then yes.
Okay, Member Norton is a yes. Member Bogus, are you with us? Trying to get her.
Yeah.
We heard something. Member Bogus? I'm not hearing anything. Well, that motion fails. 5 in favor, 1 abstaining, 8 noes. The yeas are Member Norton, Member Green, Member Klein, Member Carey, and Member Vice Chair Earl, Member Hymas abstaining. So that brings us back to the underlying motion and any amendments to the underlying motion. Back to you, Member Klein. Can she get a mic?
I move to amend line 60 to strike shall and add may for sake of consistency throughout the rule.
That motion's been made. Is there a second? Second by Member Green. You must speak to the motion.
So it would read a statement that a staff member may not discriminate against instead of shall not discriminate.
Is there any objection to that change? Okay.
It's a hard shell.
All of
Okay, hold on. You want to weigh in?
If I may, if we were to file this rule with shall nots, OAR would require us to change it to may not. It's a non-substantive change, which I think they're going to require us to do anyway when we file the rule.
They're gonna send it back because
Office of Administrative Rules, because the rule drafting manual that they have requires you to say may not and not shall not.
okay, so shall not is not in the
Is not
rule drafting
appropriate.
manual from.
Correct.
Okay.
May not is the appropriate.
All right. So knowing that, no motion is
no motion necessary. Okay, great. All right.
okay.
I'll move to my next motion. Line 63. I would amend to strike the words regarding appropriate use of. And so change it. So the statement would read, a statement that a staff member may not communicate through electronic devices and social media with a student except for on grammable state-owned and operated devices and for official academic related communications. All other communications must go to a student through the parent's email. So I'll read it again. A statement that a staff member may not communicate with a student through electronic devices and social media, except for on grammable state-owned and operated devices. Well, we can make it a word. We do that all the time, right? Well, if there's another way to say grammable, subject to grandma, thank you. And subject to grandma on state-owned and operated devices for official academic related communications.
What?
It was, she'll need to wait for a second.
Wait, say what? It's yeah, just please, if you have conversation, you need to take it outside. Ladies, members.
We need lunch. Divider. We need lunch.
All
right, sorry, I'm trying.
And then,
Yeah.
well, I did have an additional part, and maybe we'll just pass this first and then I'll make a separate motion for that additional part, but it would be to add all other communications must go to the student through the parent's email. Or through, no.
Wait, what? Is this your motion that's posted?
Yes, this is it.
Is there a second for this? Hearing no second, we are, Deputy Stallings? There is no second. Okay, all right. That motion, your microphone is.
Who do we have there? Member Bogus?
Is she seconding?
Possible. Member Bogus?
While she's doing that, can we switch around? If she's going to second it, I would put social media before electronic devices.
Member Bogus, we're hearing you only in blips, so if you mean to second, you might just want to say the word second.
Second.
I think I heard second.
The second?
All right. Okay, we got a second. Back to Member Klein, unless I think Deputy Stallings wants to weigh in.
Okay, so again, that statement that was currently there doesn't give LEA's direction on what that should look like. I know we have some rules out there on use of electronics, but as far as the staff members needs to know, again, it becomes a boundary violation, in my opinion, and I don't know if that's listed. I can't remember if that's listed in boundary violations, but there's no reason that a staff member needs to communicate with a student through other means than on official devices for official academic purposes. And that way we are keeping our kids safer and protecting educators so that they can't be accused of doing something or less likely, it helps them to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. if they only communicate through official channels that can be grandmaed and those communications verified if there's a question.
Okay, thank you. We got a few lights. Member Reel up first, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh,
Green, you were next, but I just.
so Green, then Reel. Unless, what, can we insert Deputy Stallings? Let me go out of line here and ask Angie.
Thank you, sir. Just something for Board Member Klein and the board's consideration. This statement in many ways is addressed for educators through our UPAC rules under the defined term for boundary violations. So this would go broader than what we currently have in the UPAC rules. One unintended consequence that you may want to consider providing an exception for, or just know that this is an unintended consequence. It could limit communications between staff and students that have nothing to do with their school relationship, especially if you consider in small communities or even in small communities. Educators may have relationships with private clubs or charity groups or church. And so what you would be stating here is that an educator or a staff person and students may not communicate at all. It's so broad, it goes beyond just the school setting. And so I did want to share that.
Thank you. Okay, I think we had in queue Member Green, then Member Reel, then back to Member Klein.
Okay, so
Member Hymas, Member Reel. Okay, Member Green, you're up first. You got that part.
okay, sounds good. I'm trying to work through this because I have my own personal experience here with children. For example, the math teacher, my daughter, the math teacher, me. I'm not sure if that cell phone was her own cell phone or whatever. I do know, however, that there was a policy with the math teacher specifically. I'm not sure if this is district-wide, but no communication would be done between the math teacher and my student. It had to have a parent attached to that text, stream, and that came to extra tutoring or assignment questions or whatever. I mean, there was, that expanded out depending on what the teachers are involved with extracurricular activities. Would this amendment prohibit that? And the piggybacking onto that again, I don't know if that policy was something that was created through our district. So my concern would be that would make this type of engagement cumbersome. I do appreciate things being able to be grammaed. However, technology, the phones are used for communication in real time. So I don't know that I would want I want quality checks, but I don't know that I want to prohibit that. So can we talk about that?
Question whether Deputy Stallings, did you have a hand up?
One of the things we've been talking about here is that all communications between an educator and a student are not grammable because of FERPA. Students' identity and any communications that students have are protected under FERPA and they are not subject to grandma. So just something you may want to consider taking out grammable, as well as just noting that this language would prohibit educators from communicating with students with their personal devices for personal reasons. I'll give an example. I might have, I know that I'll use a church example where our youth group uses a GroupMe to communicate with the leaders and the kids. If any of those leaders is now a teacher and any of those students or that teacher could not be part of the GroupMe, they couldn't use their private non-LEA device to communicate with that student. This is very broad. I just wanted you to be aware that this is going to prohibit more than just what would be school-related communications.
May I follow up?
Thank you, Deputy Stallings. Yes, Member Green.
Our district uses the Remind app. I think they launched a different app. Does this fall under, the Remind app on a personal device? It's an app. And so we're, mixing here into technology and apps and private devices that are used for school
purposes.
The educator would not be able to use their personal device. They'd have to go and use the LEA would have to purchase a device, a phone, for the teacher to use the Remind app. They wouldn't be able to use their personal phone with this language.
Okay, and Member Klein, is that what we're looking for? I just want to clarify if that's where this is wanting to take it.
Member Klein, questions coming your way from Member Green. What was the question again?
I'm so sorry. Is that where you're wanting to take this outside of like a picture perfect? We mix personal phones, you know, smart devices with apps that districts have.
So maybe the solution is to, if in their role as an educator or staff member, they're communicating with the student because of that relationship of teacher to student, that however they communicate, if it's not on a state-owned device, that they loop the parent in on all of those communications. Would that work? So it's never just, it's kind of like never, not having an adult and a student alone in a room together. So there's always some visibility to the parent or someone else to ensure that communication remains on the up and up. I mean, I know of teachers who have bought kids dummy phones that were inexpensive prepaid phones for a student that didn't have one, just so they could communicate with them on the side. And that's hugely problematic. And it was completely grooming this particular case.
That falls under the inappropriate gifts and special favors, sorry.
Right.
That falls under provisions already in here, plus boundary violations. I mean, it violates a whole bunch of things, so.
Right. So how do we ensure that communications stay appropriate when they're basically in a room alone together, meaning only the two can view those communications, the teacher and the student?
If you want to
That's
answer
what
really
I'm
quick, I
trying
do
to
want to
get at.
get through Vice Chair Earl had a response. Did you want to?
Yeah, the reason why it's left to the local districts is because each one uses a different, I'm just thinking of several districts, they have different technologies they use for different reasons, whether it's sports or whatever. I think it leaves it up to them to make those decisions. And I feel in this area where we've already got other provisions in here, I don't feel like this is necessary. I think it's already talking about gifts, preferential treatment, being alone. I mean, it talks about all these different things. So I think I'm ready to vote, but I feel like it's adequate the way it is currently.
All right, let's cycle back. I think we have Member Reel. We had her and lost her, so back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a lot of logistical reasons why this will not work, and so I'd like to call the question.
Okay, question's been called. Motion is to terminate the debate, move straight to a vote. Takes a 10-5 vote. Members, please, let's see. Hold on, yeah, sorry. We're fast and furious here. At least we were. We had it going pretty fast. Okay, the motion is to call the question, which is to proceed directly to a vote. Takes 10 votes to get there. Member Norton?
Yes.
Member Norton's yes. Member Bogus to call the question?
No.
Member Bogus is a no. Let's see, where are we missing? Member Carey. And Member Davis. So we got everybody now, I think. Okay, that motion passes 10-5. The no votes being Member Carey, Member Bogus, Chair Moss, Member Green, and Member Klein. So question has been called. We'll proceed directly to a vote. And this is on Member Klein's motion to amend line 63 to strike the language regarding appropriate use of and add the language may not communicate with the student through social media and electronic devices, except for on LEA owned and operated devices subject to GRAMA for official academic related communications. Board members, please vote. Member Norton.
Yes. Oh, wait a second. No. No.
Okay, Member Bogus.
I'm abstaining because I was not allowed.
Is your connection working now? I didn't have you. Oh, the question was called. Okay, sorry, that's why you weren't allowed to speak. All right.
Yes, sir.
Let's
I asked
see.
to
So,
speak about 12 minutes before the question was.
all right, let's make sure we get you. We're hearing you now. We haven't been hearing you for most of the session, but we'll get you teed up. Let's see. So are we still missing? Member Bogus abstained. Let's see. We got one more. Okay. Okay, that motion fails with 12 noes, 1 yes being Member Klein, 2 abstentions being Member Green and Member Bogus. Okay, let's see. So we're back to the underlying. Did we get through that one? We got through this one with any friendlies and other amendments, right? Okay. Member Klein, let me just ask you timing question. How many amendments are we looking at? We want to make sure we get to them all. The only question is whether to do lunch first. So, all right, let's go ahead. Let's proceed. Oh, let's see. Got a mic for Member Klein? There we go.
So I move to amend line 65 to strike regarding and of, and add that a staff may not use. So it would read a statement that a staff member may not use alcohol, tobacco, and illegal substances during work hour or on school property.
Okay, is there a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second. Back to you, Member Klein.
So I don't know that there's ever a situation where that would be allowed. So I don't know why we don't just make it a statement that they may not, instead of just requiring an LA to have a statement regarding. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, discussion on that motion. Member Bogus, we've had you in and out, but let us yell or text somebody if we're not getting you. I do see Member Hymas.
Just a quick question regarding, and I know this sounds awful, and I know that the primaries are happening. I'm going to ask it anyway. Is that okay? I need to understand the use of illegal substances in regards to medication, right? Because alcohol and tobacco, obviously that's not prescribed, but an illegal substance, what is that? And I asked because I've had to deal with these in my experiences in education. So I get what the overall message is, but if we say you can't use illegal substances, are we taking a medication that would be illegal to one and not so much to another?
Deputy Stallings.
And I know AAG Bill was ready to answer this, but if a quote unquote substance that would be illegal, but for being prescribed to you, if you have a prescription for it, it would not be illegal. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes.
But if it was your prescription and I took one of your whatever ABC pills was and took it, that would be illegal for me, but not for you.
So, and I'm guessing that that's what Ben was going to say. So,
You've not.
no? Okay.
If I may, I was just going to point out that in Rule R277210, we have a definition for drug, which is what we use in the UPAC rules, which sets forth specifically all the drugs which, the acts which list the drugs which you cannot have. If there's confusion about that term, I think you could change that to drugs as defined in 210, and that would be very specific.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, like, I agree with the motion. I'm in favor of the motion, but I want to make sure that we're not taking something away that an educator might need and have been using it appropriately over time, and then now all of a sudden they have to change careers, right? So, thank you.
Okay. Member Davis, I think. Oh, no, Member Norton. Sorry, we got Member Norton.
Is this a question that's redundant? Are these things allowed on school grounds? I was understanding that it's illegal to have these things on school grounds. For anybody.
That's correct.
I'm hearing an answer from somewhere. Member Davis?
I was going to say, I believe that's correct. But are you calling on me or?
No, I will. I'm just, so that's the answer, Deputy Stallings.
You
Sorry,
just
I'll get back.
like me to confirm on the record, there
Sure.
are laws that already do prohibit certain drugs, substances from being on property. This wouldn't change that. They'd already be prohibited by law.
Okay, is tobacco among those? Just ask Deputy Stallings or anybody else. Is tobacco still prohibited everywhere?
I don't think that under the Clean Air Act, I don't think they would, but also I don't. It's prohibited under the Utah. Yeah.
What is tobacco?
In public
Got it.
settings, including schools.
Okay, got it. Okay. So it doesn't do anything. So Member Davis and then Klein, I think? Yes, Member Davis, then Member Klein.
This is unprecedented for me in 5 years, so I don't know if I got the language right, but can I move to table this item and move on to the next item in the report out of the, or move on to the next item?
Table it. I have like two, they're just like little one word that needs to be fixed, and they might be.
If they're technical changes, they don't need to be
Well-
discussed in the body. They can just be given to staff and they can make technical changes.
I
so.
think they're a little more than technical, but
Yeah,
they're
move to table,
not substantive.
just because
The motion is to table this particular item without finishing it and move to the next item in the
do we
law
have
and
to
licensing.
vote on the motion that was already the underlying motion?
Well, I'm going to turn to our parliamentarian because that is unique. Deputy Stallings.
Will come on is whether the motion is to table until after lunch or table indefinitely. If you're tabling indefinitely, this rule is up for sunset review. And so at the very least, if we could make a motion to continue the rule, if you don't believe you'll finish it today. So if you could just clarify, is it tabling until just after lunch or tabling for next month or 2 months?
Member Davis.
When are we discussing the sunset? Is that, no, we need to continue today. Okay, I vote to table it indefinitely and continue the sunset. I mean, continue the rule.
That would be a different motion than tabling. So that would be essentially,
Didn't they already move? Isn't there a motion already on the table to
the
continue?
motion to continue is on the table. It's been amended. And so
I'd like to make a
Yeah,
substitute
Member
motion
Davis,
to
I do.
continue the rule as amended. Well, we want the amendments that we've already passed.
well, let's follow the rules and we can say yay or nay to any of this. I think the question is going to be a motion to table, not table, but continue. I don't know. I'll let her decide her own motion. Sorry? I hear you.
And just do.
I'll let each member
I think it's.
decide their own motion and we can debate it and vote.
Final information, sure.
Sure. Yes.
So this rule has been amended at least once today. So if this matter is continued, would it be continued with the amendments as already made and passed by this board?
That's within the control of the body. So if the motion was to continue as amended, then it would simply be a substitute to having any other amendments
I
considered.
think I know now.
It would pass it out as amended. If somebody moved as a substitute to just continue without any of the amendments or table it, I guess that would have to be a tabling.
I move to pass
So-
draft 2 as amended. So we keep all these amendments.
Okay, so is there a second to that? Okay, discussion of that motion. The motion is then to pass out the continuation of the rule as amended with those amendments that have passed so far. This would cut off further debate on additional amendments. Member Klein?
I guess I'm wondering what the rush is when we could finish this in like 3 minutes flat.
Okay, hold on. Let's look for
Well, at least finish the one we were on.
It's already on the table. I don't.
the motion to continue is on the table. So yeah, we're looking for discussion to the motion to continue as amended.
But the amendment that was already proposed that was not voted on.
I think that was presented as a substitute motion, correct? The substitute motion is to continue as amended. So that steps in. So if members vote for this, it does act as a substitute to the amendment that was on the floor, and instead we would pass out the motion as amended so far. So open member Carey.
I would just speak in opposition to the motion. It's my understanding the significance of this is something that's presented to educators annually. And I believe they're also required to sign it. And so this is really important. This isn't just, hey, well, we already have it in the law. This protects our educators and staffers because this brings awareness to them. And I just think that we've come so far on this, and, you know, some of these amendments I've supported and some I've supported and we've lost today, but I don't see why we just wouldn't take the time to finish the amendments that Board Member Klein is bringing to the floor. We will spend more time debating the application to on the substitute motion than it would probably take to actually consider and address Board Member Klein's proposals. So I'm going to speak against the substitute motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carey. Member Davis.
Oh, I would agree if it's not already in the language. I just asked if it's in the language already and it's
What's in the
illegal.
language already?
Substance use, illegal substance use is already in the language. In 65 and 66. So I just
Yeah, I guess the effect
can
of
read
the
it here.
substitute motion though is
65 says a statement regarding use of alcohol, tobacco, and illegal substances during work hours and on school property.
All right, so the motion pending is to avoid completing that discussion by passing out what's already been amended. And the amendment that was on the floor, because that is germane to the motion to continue, would be saying rather than a state regarding, it would be prohibiting or something to that effect. Right, okay, so I'd speak against the motion to continue as well, but let's hear if anybody else. Any other comments? Member Bogus, Member Norton? I think we're good. Let us vote. The motion then is to continue rule, what's the name of this rule? 322, R277-322 as amended to this point. Who did second that? Member Carey? Member Straight, sorry. Okay. Oh, yeah, Member Norton? On the motion to continue as amended
Yes.
without further discussion or amendment. Member Norton's a yes. Member Bogus?
No.
Member Bogus is a no. That motion fails 7-8. The yes votes being where's my eyes? Member Straight, Member Booth, Member Norton, Member Lear, Member Davis, Member Wood, and Member Reel. Okay, back to the motion that was on the floor regarding illegal substances, which was to amend line 65 to strike regarding of and add that a staff member may not use. Any further discussion of that motion? If not, Member Hymas.
I want to bring up a question that affects a lot of people. We're talking about something as simple as a smoke break. Do they have to leave campus, or can they walk the 500 feet to the edge of, you know what I mean? Are we? Yeah, so they can't in a public building.
It's
but I have
public
a-
building or property? Public property?
This,
Right, I think there's a separate provision that we're hearing already prohibits on public something or other broader than schools, and that says property, not buildings.
so my question is, this sounds like it's now saying, instead of a statement that the LEA can say, yeah, you cannot have alcohol, tobacco, illegal drugs in the building. And I obviously I would take it a step further as an LEA head and say, I don't even want those on my property. But am I now saying to, my parking lot is fairly small, but others are quite large. Their property is quite large. Am I saying if you need to go out and take a smoke break during your time, am I saying you need to get in your car and drive off the property because of this? Or is that up to the LEA to decide?
If I could clarify with Deputy Stallings, my understanding is the law already says you may not do it on public property, but let me get clarification on that.
Let's clarify,
This,
please.
yeah, because this may be just coextensive with what's already there.
The
Deputy Stallings?
language in code prohibits smoking within certain number of feet, within certain number of buildings already. That is already legally prohibited or required.
Within a number of feet from a building or from
Within,
the property?
from certain buildings. So for schools, for
buildings, okay.
example, you couldn't just stand right outside the door and smoke. You have to be a certain number of feet away. From the property. And so if the parking lot were very large, you may be able to do it at the very corner of the parking lot. But if you had a small one, it might be we'd have to look at the number of feet is what we're trying to say to see.
We can set this meeting, so. Product, and it already is in the. Work hours for and on school property.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I mean, it says school property, but currently says regarding use. So the current law appears to be you cannot do it on public within certain feet from a public building. This would say you cannot do it on a school property. So
Right,
the differences are public to school and feet from a building to property, right?
This would,
Yeah, back to you.
as far as I understand, to Member Klein's point, she says it's already in here, which again, then why are we having this whole discussion? But it's already in here. The statement regarding use of alcohol, tobacco, and illegal substances during work hours and on school property. But this is a statement regarding those things that we're asking LEAs to put forth. So if there's a statement, it's not saying necessarily that they cannot do that. They have to follow law still. But what I'm seeing here in this draft or this amendment is we're tightening and saying law says, I'm just going to throw out 500 feet. I don't know.
No, it's
We're
actually
saying-
school property. When we just looked it
Okay.
up, it's actually property.
That's
So it
what I'm trying to
aligns.
get clarity
Yeah,
on.
it aligns.
Okay.
Thank you. I see Member Carey. Okay. Member Carey.
You are clean.
And then who?
Mine's just a point of information. Do we have the citation on the tobacco use being prohibited on school property?
I just have the.
Deputy Stallings, did you have
That's
that
fine.
too? We're trying to track the,
Okay.
You track.
yeah, if you could.
G dash 8-209.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, seeing no further lights, the motion then is to amend line 65 to strike regarding of and add that a staff member may not use. Please vote. Member Norton. Member Bogus.
Yes.
Or Member Bogus is a yes. Member Norton. Member Norton. Bogus was a yes. And we don't have member Norton, I believe. Okay, let's see. We're missing just member Norton, I think. So we should have 2 more. Okay. And 1 more. Okay, that motion passes 12-2, the no votes being members Lear and Reel. All right, back to open floor. Further amendments, member Klein.
I move to amend line 67 to strike is required to and replace it with shall. For consistency in, unless that can be done without a motion.
Any objection to that being changed as a technical change to conform? Sorry. Okay, so that will be to conform with other changes made as a technical element.
Okay.
No objection, done. Okay.
Okay, there's another technical on line 72. I don't think the and is required there since it's moving into a new section. After that, it doesn't need to connect there. And then my last one is my motion to amend line 68 to add a comma after abuse, after bullying, and or another comma after bullying, and then the words or boundary violations. So it reads, report any suspicion of child abuse, bullying, or boundary violations to the proper authorities. And that is my final motion.
Is there a second? I heard a second, Deputy. Okay, we've got a second from member Green, Deputy Stallings.
That just wanted to clarify that boundary violations are not like a legal, if you want to talk about the police investigating, boundary violations are really about UPAC, but currently the law, they only apply to educators. So they'd be reported to the local LEA, to HR, but if you're saying report to the appropriate authorities, that's really report to USBE for educators, you know, in accordance with R277-200 rules.
Okay, thank you. Discussion of the motion? Oh, let's see, we're trying to get the language right here, member Klein. Oh, there we go.
So it would read, report any suspicion of child abuse, comma, bullying, comma, or boundary violations to the proper authorities. And I think bullying is not a legal thing necessarily either, so boundary violations would fit there.
So the proper
is 68.
Bless you.
So the proper authorities other than child abuse would be UPAC or the LEA?
Maybe it should say the appropriate authorities.
Well, proper, appropriate. Oh, it's your motion. I think what?
We can leave it at proper unless somebody feels otherwise.
Okay, member Lear? Member Straight?
Chair, I need some examples of boundary violations.
They're listed in 210.
All right, easy there.
Oh, no, what was that?
I've done anti-harassment training for 25 years. I always say rule number 1 is do not engage in harassment while we're talking about harassment. So don't invite a boundary violation. I'm sorry, I'm close to lunch. I'm getting a little frivolous. Go ahead. What do you mean?
No, I'm sorry. I missed the joke.
I know that. When you say you need an example, you don't want to see one. You want somebody to explain what that means. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to
Rule
know or
210.
understand what is meant by that.
I know you weren't asking someone to demonstrate. It's R277-210.
Well, for me, I hate hugs. I hate hugging. That is a boundary violation for me.
All right, so R277-210 gives the definition of boundary violations. And it starts down on part 6A, and I apologize, this doesn't have lines, but it looks like it's page, the one I have doesn't even have. We got it. There we go. So boundary violation. There's a definition in A and examples in B. So
Okay, so those are reported now to us?
I think they're already reported for educators. Well, do we have a requirement to report though? I guess Deputy Stallings, I don't know if there's currently requiring to report. That's where that would be.
For educators, licensed educators, yes.
Right.
Non-educators, no.
So I'm sorry, there's currently a requirement to report those, Angie, or? For educators, it's already prohibited. Is it required to report? No.
I apologize. So it depends on which of these things you're talking about. If you're talking about child abuse, everything is reportable,
that's
right?
gotta be reported.
If it's boundary violations, currently that would be specific to educators. No? No, okay, there's no duty to report boundary violations on your. Okay, so LEAs are required to report boundary violations to us, but not individual educator to educator peer.
Got it. Okay. Does everybody hear that? So currently boundary violations are prohibited by Rule 210. There's not a reporting obligation connected to those boundary obligations boundary violations currently for teachers. The LEA is aware of it. They have to. So this would both create a reporting obligation for teachers and expand it to include staff. Correct? Okay. Staff as being the violators and the obligation to report, correct? So if you engage in it, that's now prohibited. And if you're a staff, you're required to report it. Okay. All right. Any further discussion of that motion? Okay, let us tee it up. The motion to amend is to add boundary violations on line 68. Is that the entirety, Member Klein? Okay. I'm sorry. Child abuse, bullying, or boundary violations. Okay. Okay, I think we've got
May I
it.
make one more
Sorry, yeah.
clarification? I apologize.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify that again, this rule directs LEAs to establish codes of conduct. It does not make it a legal prohibition. If we wanted to legally prohibit and do these things, we actually should put it in another rule that states an employee may not or an employee shall. I just want to be clear that all of this primarily is a directive to LEAs to create a code of conduct that does something. It doesn't actually create the legal prohibition. And I was trying to explain that earlier, where legal prohibitions are in other spots. The codes of conduct usually point to those legal prohibitions and ask people to pledge not to do them. And so I want to make sure we're not conflating that just putting it in the code of conduct doesn't mean that it's legally prohibited. You need to put that in another spot as well.
So just clarification on this amendment, it would not necessarily prohibit conduct. It would require a report. So we would be requiring every LEA to include in their code of conduct a reporting obligation for things that are addressed elsewhere.
So you would be telling an LEA to put that in their code of conduct, but yet you're not putting a law that says LEA, educator, you shall report to USBE. That is not you're just telling right now LEAs to put that in code of conduct. It doesn't actually make it the law. There's a difference because those policies are not, they don't go through the law making process like our rules do.
Okay, but so the code of conduct would be a local conduct code, obviously, which the LEA could enforce with their own disciplinary policies, right? These things are addressed elsewhere. Child abuse prohibited. There's already a reporting obligation. Bullying defined elsewhere. Boundary violations defined elsewhere as it relates to teachers. So this would not, like you said, this would require them to report these things, but it wouldn't impose a separate penalty that's addressed elsewhere.
It would have to be in the 200 rules, and then UPAC would look at those rules, not this LEA code of conduct, if that makes sense.
Yep. Okay, and each of those is addressed in in 217 or 210, abuse, bullying, and boundary violations. Okay. Vice Chair Earl.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort this out from what's reality and what's over the top. And here's where I'm going with this, because I'm looking at this going, bullying is it illegal? Do you know what I mean? Where child abuse is illegal. I just, and then at that point, who defines the bullying? And then I start looking at these things. They're going to be forced to report something if they think it might be an inappropriate gift. So then we've got, I just see this as I'm getting concerned that we're stepping further into not just micromanaging, but this kind of everybody's, I don't know. Is that the wrong thing? Is that the wrong thing? Where those giving a gift is not illegal. So now you're going to have to create some kind of a mechanism for investigative, right? That kind of, although you're saying that's not the case, right? So, but it's starting to get into that realm of what is this really? And boundary violations, we're going to be uninvited or inappropriate. Now you've got it touching, and you've got to start. I don't know. It feels like we're getting into this very everything we're going to be watching kind of a thing, instead of where the illegal behaviors have to be reported and need to be reported on any of this. So I'm just trying to balance that in my mind and trying to figure out where it's an overstep and where it really is a need. And I'm feeling like, and I don't agree with bullying in there either. I'm not sure you can really, I don't know whose terminology bullying falls under. So I guess those are just the questions going on in my mind while I'm thinking through this.
Okay, Member Davis or Member Carey? Who's Davis? Davis, Wood, and Carey.
Thank you. I spent some time last week with a superintendent of a district, not of one that I represent, one that y'all represent. And he said something that had a chilling effect on me a bit. And he said that a teacher came to him and said, between the woke left and the awakened right, every day I'm one step away from total ruin. And I just think at some point we have to be thinking about what we're doing and, and the impacts that it's having. There's some objectivity in people's perceptions of things. And I think we're in a little bit difficult territory on this one. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Davis. Member Wood.
I had a question where we were talking about the bullying. Aren't we required to report that through the Hollins bill that came out in the last year or so? So isn't that it is somewhere else where there's a requirement for that reporting to happen? So as Deputy Stallings was saying, child abuse is a required reporting, bullying is a required reporting. It's already somewhere else, and that's why it's required in this statement.
Deputy Stallings.
And I apologize because it may sound like I've stated this over and over, and I just want to try and say it one more time. I think what you're hearing from staff is this concern that we have legal requirements, the prohibitions all over the place. What this rule is meant to do is kind of combine those into a pledge, an area, a space where you have a policy and you train to it. When we start trying to change the legal requirements in this rule without changing the legal requirements from their source, like let's go to the source of the law that says we're prohibiting bullying. Let's go to the source, 217 or 210, to clarify boundary violations. What is happening is it feels like it's conflating, and there's this expectation that we're changing these laws by changing this one, and that is not the case. And normally a code of conduct takes the law and creates a pledge or a training. And so I think what you're seeing from staff here is a lot of concern, like, the law needs to be changed. We can't do it here. We've got to do it in the originating laws. And so I just want to end with that. That's what I'll end with.
All right, thank you, Deputy Stallings. Member Lear?
A situation of fear. We're creating a fear-based environment for teachers, for staff members, and that is a horrible way to communicate the love of learning to children. If everything they do or say or where they walk or how they walk, or if they go 500 feet away from the school to smoke or chew tobacco or whatever else, am I far enough? It's so pharisaical. It is so wrong to create a situation where children and staff people, their employees are living in fear every minute of their working day. I think this just compounds the other laws we have, which already, as Deputy Stallings pointed out, are prohibited. And now we're piling on with those prohibitions. No wonder teachers are leaving the profession in droves. Who would want a working environment where the board in charge of those employees wants to establish more fear and wants to get others to tattle on them when they might have a suspicion of a boundary violation? I mean, how much more gray can you add to that? I'm really, really bothered by this discussion and this intent to create public schools as areas of fear.
Thank you, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Just two items. I'll start with the one I had as first. And that is that it's my understanding that Board Member Klein's amendment isn't, in this particular regard, as it relates to line 68, we're not requiring any additional, we're not adding any additional boundary violations. We're not adding any additional prohibited conduct. All we're saying is, when this happens, you have to report it. So there is no new list of items, but rather it's saying, look, you already have to define this. You already have to create a policy that encapsulates all these things. But we just don't want it sitting on someone's shelf, because we know it's happening, right? We have these policies. Let's get that data that's so important now in everything we do, and let's use it. Let's use it to address these issues as they happen. So I would speak in favor of the proposed amendment, because it's not adding additional prohibitions or additional requirements. All we're saying is, why have these schools go through creating all this policy, doing all this work, and then doing nothing with the data? That's even more offensive in many ways. The second thing I would ask the maker of the motion, if she would accept it as a friendly, is that we strike bullying. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Klein. Is that a friendly? Any objection from the body? The proposed amendment is to strike bullying, so that it would just include child abuse or boundary violations, correct?
Clearly defined. I object.
Okay, that's objected, so we need to bring it as a motion. Member Carey, would you like to tee that up as a motion?
God.
Sorry, what? Oh, I think we're...
Yeah.
So the motion on the floor is from Member Klein to add boundary violations. Question whether... Motion to strike bullying.
Amendment.
Yeah, this would be an amendment to that motion. And it would be simply to strike the word bullying. So it would read, report any suspicion of child abuse or boundary violations to the proper authorities. And then I would like to speak to the motion.
It's been seconded. Back to you, Member Carey.
And again, my reason for striking bullying is not that it's something insignificant, but to address what I think are the legitimate concerns that where child abuse and boundary violations are defined, bullying is certainly more nebulous and ill-defined if we define it at all. So that's why I would recommend and make the motion that we strike it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion, Member Hymas?
Thank you. Can I just get some clarification on and proper authorities does not necessarily mean it does not necessarily mean like police or DCFS. What does can I help this will help my voting here on even the motion to amend the amendment. Can the proper authority be an educator sees something happening and then they go to their direct supervisor? Is that a proper authority?
If I may,
please.
It's going to depend on the circumstance. So if you're dealing with abuse, there's a statute that specifically says if you are aware of child physical or sexual abuse, that's got to be reported to DCFS or to law enforcement. For bullying, it might be something different. The proper authorities is not defined anywhere in rule. That would be something the LEA would have to define in their policy.
And I'm not, thank you, Ben, and Chair, if I could follow up. I'm not looking to take time to define that role. I just want to make sure that that's clear that if it's reported, that's fine. But I don't want to go to the police and call them. I've been down this road before, and they have things to do as well. But if it's something like an accusation or something, it's fine as an administrator. If somebody says to me, then I can investigate. But I don't want to go throughout to these legal arms if it's not required.
This amendment would not create any new requirement on the USBE side.
All right, Member Klein, did you have your light on for this? Oh, Member Straight does. Well, Member Klein is first, though, if that's to this discussion. Back to you.
Sorry, no.
Okay, Member Straight.
Yes, I'm trying to remember the legislation, but I think we have reporting requirements dealing with bullying. I think they're, in fact, I think it's under safety. And in fact, I was looking at that in the last week and I can't remember where, but it was discussed and we actually talked about that because the data is all over the place. And yeah, and so in regards to this, you know, I felt really awkward when I guess I used the wrong term. And that was taken to mean something that, in my view, may have been tainting my words to something that I was saying something inappropriate. Where do I report that boundary violation, Chair? And so you go to the faculty room, people say stuff. And yeah, do I need to run to Principal Hymas and report that? And anyway, I will stop at that. But speaking to this, we have locally elected school boards that put together policies and are required to do policies, and we want to micromanage. But I guess the key question is there legislation that requires the bullying data in order to meet the requirements of those?
Question for our staff. Does anybody want to weigh in on that? The question is whether there's already a reporting obligation for bullying. Member Green?
Does that question fall in line with our vote that we took on Monday where we're creating a dashboard for bullying?
Well, it would relate somehow, right? I mean, we have a dashboard that gathers what has been reported. This goes to the kind of more basic element of what is reported, right?
I'm wondering
I think
if the two will, I wonder, he brings up a good point. It's here already in 210, and we say we have other areas that takes care of or addresses the bullying. And then how does what we voted on Monday tie in with this whole conversation now that we're creating a dashboard specifically designated to bullying?
Chair Hymas, Member Hymas?
From what I can see, the process is looking at what we voted on Monday. That's data that's collected by the LEA as they work with kids, as they work with teachers. This is a statement that a staff member is required to report any suspicion. So again, the LEA comes up with a statement that says, hey, if you see bullying, you got to let us know. If you see boundary violations, let us know. If you see child abuse, let us know, right? And then they take proper roles. So I mean, and then it gets reported to the LEA, then it goes up into this dashboard. But I do think it is important. I guess essentially I'm speaking against this motion because it is important that if an educator is like, hey, I think this kid's getting bullied, I should probably let my super or my principal know, right? So I don't know, and that's why I asked about this proper authority, because if somebody needs to report something, then and they see something that they probably should say, yeah, I need to report that. And so to remove bullying might cause some issues.
So I understand from Deputy Stallings that R277-613-5 requires reporting on bullying. That's reporting by an LEA. So is there a reporting obligation for an observer who suspects bullying has taken place? There's two levels of reporting. This is talking about reporting by an observer to the appropriate authorities. 613-5 requires the LEA to report it up to us. Yeah.
Just want to share that what the bullying laws talk about is telling LEAs they need to investigate. And then based on the investigations, there's reports that are done to USBE on how many incidents of bullying did you have, et cetera. There is another section of code, I believe, that also requires reports. But a lot of the reporting that I'm seeing right now are about LEAs reporting to USBE, but the LEA would have done an investigation based on an allegation, which could be also a report. Like Ben, I do something to him, I've been constantly bullying him. He might report that, whether, and one of the clarifying questions we had is just to make sure we're probably limiting this, since we're talking about an LEA code of conduct, about bullying of a teacher, right? Or in an adult, we're not talking about reporting bullying on students, correct? And so
are we?
That's the question we had.
So
it just says bullying.
Yeah. So the LEA has to report it. The code. Let me just remind us all. The rule currently requires any staff member to report suspicion of child abuse or bullying. So that's already in law. The motion was initially to add boundary violations. The motion to amend from Member Carey is to take out bullying. So current question is whether to pull out the requirement to report bullying by a staff member who observes it, right? Or at least to whether to require the LEA to have a code of conduct which requires the staff member to report bullying. That's what's on the floor. Member Lear.
It's even a little different than what you just said. It's the suspicion of bullying, the suspicion of boundary violations. So with all respect to Member Carey's data collection concerns, I don't want to know how many suspicions of bullying were reported or suspicions of boundary violations were reported. I like the investigated and verified information so that we have real live data, verifiable information to then act on.
Okay, and I guess one additional for Deputy Stallings, the dashboard and the other reporting obligations that come from the LEA to us, I assume those don't include a requirement to report allegations or suspicions, but rather something that has been investigated, et cetera. What, or is it both? What?
No.
That's a good question somebody raised. How does this relate in, I think, Member Green, if somebody reports suspicion, does that now go into the funnel that is reported up to the dashboard? No.
It does not. Only
incidents. After the
Okay.
investigation, if an incident has been found, not just an allegation, but an actual incident, that is what is reported to
Okay,
us.
okay. All right, let's see. Member Wood, and then we can take this to a vote.
So 53G-9605, the bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, abusive conduct, and retaliation policy requires that we require a signed statement annually from staff. Is this the signed statement that we require, or is there a different signed statement that is required?
Sorry, Deputy Stallings, we keep throwing them at you.
Yes. I'm doing a research project while in front of people. Okay, so 53G9 601.
He's asking if the statement the educator signs under 605 is the same as the statement we require in 322. I think the answer is no.
I agree.
So there are two different statements. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Am I okay to ask a question?
Member Green? Sure.
Okay, I'm just trying to apply what we're asking here, and I'm kind of going back. Maybe I'm not speaking to the right motion though. This one would be more speaking to Member Klein's motion.
So this is not to the deletion of bullying?
No.
Should we hold
sorry.
come back then?
Yeah,
Okay,
we should.
we can come back. I don't see, do we need further clarification to vote on this motion, which is to remove the word bullying where it is currently found on line 68? Yes, Member Klein, and then we'll go ahead and vote.
Yeah, I would just say districts are already hypervigilant about looking for and finding bullying and tracking it because of other laws. I don't think this is going to change what districts are already doing in that realm.
Okay, with that, do we have Member Carey? It's his motion. I don't want to tee it up without the maker here. There we go. All right, we are ready. The lights are off. We're ready to proceed on your motion. Motion is to amend the amendment to strike bullying on line 68. So I believe we're set, unless you're throwing in another comment. You got your light on. Okay. Final comment, bullying is not defined. Are we ready to vote? Okay. We are. Voting is open. Voting is half done. Okay, Member Norton. Member Norton?
We are voting
Boggess?
to remove bullying.
Correct.
Yes.
Member Boggess is a yes. Member Norton?
No,
Oh,
sir.
wait, that was Norton. Sorry. All right. Norton is a yes. Member Boggess? Do we have Member Boggess?
Yes.
Member Boggess said no? Wait. Hold on. I got a lot of. Boggess is a yes. Norton is a yes. Two yeses. Got it, but got you both right? Okay. All right. That motion fails. Vote of 10 against. The yeas being Member Boggess, Member Norton, Member Klein, and Member Carey, with Member Reel. I've got to fix Member Davis abstaining. Sheesh. Okay. All right. So back to Member Klein's underlying motion to amend, which was to add boundary violations on line 68. We've discussed that pretty extensively. Final comment, Member Klein? Or no? Okay, we are ready to vote. That is then to add boundary violations. Board members, please vote. Member Norton?
No.
Member Norton's a no. Member Boggess?
Yes.
Member Boggess is a yes. Excuse me. Two more. Okay. She's thinking about it.
She's thinking.
All right, that motion fails. 8 opposed, 6 in favor. The yeses are Member Green, Vice Chair Earl, Member Carey, Member Bogus, Member Hymas, and Member Klein, with Member Davis abstaining. So that motion fails. The underlying motion then is that the board continue and approve R277-322 Local Education Agency Codes of Conduct, Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, please vote. Member Norton.
Yes.
Member Norton's yes. Member Bogus.
Yes.
Member Bogus is a yes. And that motion passed. Oh, whoop. Spoke too soon. We got one more. A motion does pass 13-2 with the noes being Member Lear and, I'm sorry, we got some changing. Member Klein is a yes. So let's see, can we? Are we able to switch Member Klein to a yes?
Not on this.
Not on here, but we will on the record. Okay, so Member Klein is a yes. That motion passes 14-1 with Member Lear being opposed. Okay, thank you. We are at lunch. Yes, we are. We have, yes, that's where I'm going. Don't you worry. All right, we got 2 items left after lunch for law and licensing, and then a separate session of law and licensing. So let's take 30 minutes and we will come back at 5 to 3.